Jimmy Carter was actually president when I was born, but he got voted out later that year and replaced by Ronald Reagan. So Reagan is the first president that I remember seeing on TV. And growing up back in the 80s, you had Ronald Reagan and the moral majority, which on the surface looked pretty cool if you were a kid. I mean, you had Ronald Reagan, who was a very charismatic speaker. He had a lot of stage presence, a lot of charisma. He surrounded himself by people like Pat Robertson from the 700 Club, Jerry Falwell, the Reverend Billy Graham. So if you just looked at it on the surface for what it was and heard them talk about their patriotism, because it was a very patriotic time, if you heard them talk about how much they loved their country and how much they believed in God, you would think that they truly were the moral majority, because all they talked about was morals and values. But then when you actually got to learning about how things really work and you figured out their voting records and how they voted on things, you realize that it went against everything that they were saying, and you realize that the people who they were duping into voting for them were actually voting against their own interest. And I was reminded of that this past Mother's Day. Midas touched did a really good story on this. There was 9 Republicans who voted against the Access for Baby Formula Act, yet they were praising moms on Mother's Day. And it's just always been the Republican gimmick to find a holiday, find a reason to come out and act like that you're all in support of something. But if you look at their voting records, you'll find out that actually they really weren't for the moms at all. So we're going to go down this list of the 9 Republicans who voted against this Access to Baby Formula Act, starting with Andy Biggs. Now, he did post on Mother's Day. He had this to say: "Happy Mother's Day to all the moms in Arizona's fighting fifth and across the nation. We are incredibly grateful for everything you do for us. You make our worlds better. I wish you a wonderful day." So that's a nice post and all. The only problem with it is there's 142,000 babies in Arizona that depend on WIC, and Andy Biggs voted against the Access to Baby Formula Act, which makes it easier for mothers to find baby formula. And this was first started back in 2022 when we had the baby formula shortage. Another person, not a shock here, that voted against this act was Lauren Boebert. Lauren Boebert has spent a career bashing people on government assistance when she herself was raised on it. And I see that so much in my part of the world. I know people who were raised up on government assistance that now go out of their way to bash anyone out there in any need whatsoever. And out in Colorado, 142,000 babies depend on WIC, but Lauren Boebert voted against that too. And then we have Matt Gaetz, who posted this on Mother's Day. Of course, Matt Gaetz is the guy that says, "especially mine." That's so cliche, I wouldn't expect anything less from him. But there was 403,000 babies on WIC down in Florida. Then you have Louis Gohmert, who was in Congress down in Texas. He dropped out to run for Attorney General. He lost that race, but there was 669,000 babies on WIC down in Texas. Then you have Paul Gosar in Arizona. He didn't tweet. 142,000 kids on WIC down in Arizona. And of course, Marjorie Taylor Greene is one of these 9, but then again, she blamed the baby formula shortage on WIC years ago. Take a look at this.
They broke our country, and it's very difficult to get it back on track. But here's the real deal. Let me explain some of the other problems. WIC, the government program, is the largest buyer, the largest customer for baby formula in the United States of America. And now Joe Biden and his administration, they're moving into their solution is making WIC an even bigger customer, when in reality, many of the parents that can't buy baby formula for their baby, they're not on the WIC program. And the WIC program is making it more difficult for them to buy baby formula, because if you're on WIC, if you're someone that needs to be on that government assistance, you're allowed to buy as much baby formula as you want to with your WIC vouchers, and they're increasing that for those parents. But if you're not on WIC, you're limited in how many cans of baby formula you're allowed to buy.
So of course, Marge voted against 185,000 babies on WIC down in Georgia. Then you had Thomas Massey in Kentucky, who didn't tweet, but he voted against 107,000 babies in Kentucky. Then you had Clay Higgins, who shared this picture of his mom. Nice pick and all, but then again, he voted against 88,000 kids down in Louisiana. And then, of course, Chip Roy posted this pic of his mom. Again, nice pick and all, but he voted against 669,000 babies on WIC down in Texas. So I'm sure their Mother's Day post made a lot of their voters warm and fuzzy inside, but when it came time to go to bat for mothers, these 9 Republicans were nowhere to be found. And this has always been the shtick of the Republican Party. Like I said at the start of the video, going back to when I was a kid, you had Ronald Reagan and the moral majority. It looked good on the surface, but when you dug in and realized what they voted for and what they voted against, you realized that if you sided with them, you were voting against your own interest. And what good is it to come out on Mother's Day and wish everyone a happy Mother's Day if you're making life harder on mothers and you're taking away rights from mothers today that your mother had when she had you? How hypocritical is that? That's some of my biggest pet peeves about the modern day Republican Party. They'll demonize government assistance all day long. They'll sit and demonize it all day, but yet they were raised up on it. It helped them survive when they were young, but now they don't want anyone else to have that chance. They know people, they've had people in their lives, or they themselves have got an abortion at some point in their lives, but now they're trying to rip those rights away from women to get the reproductive care that they need. It's all talk and it's all show and it's all gimmicks and catchphrases and cliches from these modern day Republicans. But when it comes time, when your future's on the line, when your rights is on the line, when how you pay your bills and feed your family and feed your baby is on the line, the Republicans are going to come out there. They're going to tell you what you want to hear. They're going to blame everything on Joe Biden and all the Democrats and all the libtards sitting in a chair trying to tell you otherwise. They're going to demonize us to death, find a way to vilify us any way they can, and they're going to go in there and they're going to vote directly for themselves. And when you go to vote, you're voting against your own interest. And I'm just a person who I could not fall in line with that. I live in the Bible Belt. I've always joked and said I am in one of the buckles of the Bible Belt. It is blood red where I'm at. But I just could not fall in line with it because I saw through it and it insulted me. I felt insulted at the fact they were talking down to me. I felt insulted that they used the flag that my grandfather, my great uncle, my uncle fought for. And all the men and women who have fought and died for that, they use that and bastardize that to act patriotic. It offends me that they use the Bible and they cherry pick it. They pick out parts that fits their agenda and they keep going. It offends me that they took everything that was once sacred and use it to dupe people into voting against their own interest. I find it offensive. A lot of people in my part of the world say, oh man, I can't believe you think that way. You're a traitor. You're this, you're that. You're Judas Iscariot. Fine. If I'm your Judas Iscariot, I will kiss you on the cheek and tell you that you're being played. I don't care to be that guy. Not one bit. Because I was lucky enough growing up. I've missed him several times with my Uncle Brad. He would always set me down when I would get excited about a certain politician. He'd say, okay, fine. Get excited if you want to, but look at their voting record. And by the time I got done looking at that, I was like, dang, man, I would be a complete moron if I voted for these people. And then it makes me think of this bumper sticker that my Uncle Brad had on the back of his truck. It said, a poor man voting for a Republican is like a chicken voting for Colonel Sanders.